Wait, you're recording?
I think so. Yeah, I'm recording.
But I'm not done counting my change.
Why are you counting change when we're about to record a podcast?
Because change is pretty. Okay.
Change. Ooh,
Speaking of change.
I was about to say, that was kind of clever. Welcome to the Peas in Progress podcast. Here, we'll share our experiences as a biracial millennial couple who got married in the South and what we've learned together through the current social and political climate.
All while learning to trust and love one another through what seems to be a life in transition. Welcome to our life.
I'm Brandon.
And I'm Amy Beth.
Hey friends, just a friendly notice. We want to let you know that this podcast will be adult friendly, including language and subject matter not suitable for younger ears. So if you have headphones, now would be a good time to use them.
Well, hey everybody. Welcome back to our third podcast. If you're listening with us this far, you're a champ. You've heard a lot of background stories. So we haven't even really talked about what we're really going to talk about, which is more issues involving what we've been through. But we're still in the foundational stages, and I think that this is the last one.
It's definitely the last one.
It's the last foundation. The next one will be a hard hitter. We're not going to give that away.
Whew, we've done a lot of prep work to get ready for that next one, so
right. I still have a whole other book to read before we record that episode too.
Don't give them any clues. They might go researching.
Well,
you don't have any book lists or anything out on the internet, do you?
Not right now.
Okay.
Anyways,
well, yeah, she's been reading.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of educating, which is very difficult, but also very awesome at the same time. So this time we are going to talk about what it was like to first be married, when we lived in Texas, then when we moved to Louisiana, and up until we moved here to Colorado. So we moved here to Colorado in 2017. So we're going to talk up to that point, and it is currently December 29th, 2018. And you will be hearing this on the 1st.
2019.
Right, on the 1st of the month. So
yeah. Starting the new off right.
Well, let's get back to our foundation, because when we were first married, I feel like that was a very, very hard area of our life.
Yeah.
Time frame. So we lived in Abilene, Texas at the time, and Brandon, tell them why we lived there.
Yeah, well, first off, I am in the master's program still. So I'm finishing my second year of the master's program. And that's pretty much the main reason we were in, of all places, Abilene, Texas. Keep in mind, I had already made a decision to go into the master's program prior to us getting married and all that jazz. So this just happened to be going on in the midst of all of that.
Right. And so while Brandon was finishing his master's degree, that's when I was working in corporate America as a graphic designer. I had gotten this job from a local connection. I've always been an entrepreneur, and I feel like me being an entrepreneur got me this job because of my willingness to walk indoors and ask people if they were hiring. And I think my dad actually found this job and sent it to me because he knew I was really tired of working at Starbucks. So I had been working at this corporate job for a while, and HR was my friend. I did not do well in this environment. I am a true artist, and meaning I like my freedom. I don't like being told what to do. I like my creative space. I'm a very emotional human being. Brandon can attest. And HR was my friend, being that I was very open and honest from the beginning with the people around me in my work field. And they didn't always take it that well. I think it was part of my upbringing coming out and how I was just raised to not take people's shit and also to call out people's shit, because if we're trying to be better people, then let's be better and be aware. And I was younger then, so I was actually one of the youngest cubicle dwellers in corporate America where
That's
I
what
worked
we're
at the
calling it
time.
now, cubicle
Right.
dwellers.
It's in my notes actually.
Okay.
So I was working 40 to 50 hours a week, and I was working not only in the corporate job, but that's when I was doing my entrepreneurship outside of the corporate America job, which was ABC Design and Photography, which was my own freelance. That keeps saying because I don't know how to really frame this. It was my freelance business, and I named it. And then I made it official because we went through all the paperwork to get it officiated through Texas. So it was an entity at one point in time, and I had a great time doing that. That was my pride and joy, and it was what got me through my corporate years because it gave me some creative outlet outside of this supposed graphic design job that I was given. Graphic design job in the corporate field was not fun, and the people weren't fun, and it was very money minded, and people were fired a lot, people were let go a lot, there was a lot of turnover, and people were rude. I had people make fun of me openly in this arena, and it was very embarrassing. And
Yeah.
I remember just feeling so defeated in this atmosphere, and I was so glad to be done.
Yeah, it was like night and day watching her go from like one place to her freelancing business. Like she would come home and you could just see the stress on her face from just having to deal with people all day and their bullshit. But whenever she was working on her freelancing stuff, it was like a light to her. Like that was probably one of the funnest things I've supported you through. Just seeing how you created it from the ground up, how you came up with this concept and you just like ran with it.
Well, I
And
also got to work with people one on one because that's where I really thrive is working
mm-hmm.
with people and getting exactly what they want and finding their need. And that was what I got to do as a photographer, as a wedding photographer, as a portrait photographer, working with couples, individuals. It was fun because I got to be in that moment with them and capture that. And I usually, a lot of people would tell me that I would bring out the best in them. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was really fun to be able to do that for people and then photograph it at the same time. I don't mean to gloat, but I feel like I was pretty damn good. And I still am pretty damn good. I just don't pull it out as often because I feel like the world has become this Instagram culture where everything has to look perfect. And I've just been professionally trained. I can't help it, but I also have a knack for photography and artistic type things.
The
So,
girl's got an eye for detail, and I think the corporate world was sleeping on it.
oh
So
well, it's too bad.
sucks to suck
I
for
wouldn't.
them.
I didn't last there for a reason. So, while Brandon was in school, which was hard on him, by the way, did you have any stories you wanted to tell from being
Oh
in
my
school?
gosh, so many. I mean, this was the second year was also the year for me where in the program you actually start seeing clients face to face. So all this prep work of learning models and how to ask questions and all that great stuff now is becoming real. Like this isn't like, oh, we're gonna practice on each other sort of stuff. Like this is real. Like people's lives are in my hand. And with my co-therapist at the time, and she had done amazing work from just sitting in the supervision sessions, and I was expecting, oh, okay, this is gonna go well, and then it definitely did not. Lots of very hurtful things were said by this client, and it deeply impacted me in such a way that that was also an evening that I was planning on meeting Amy Beth and we are gonna hang out. And I got there late because I had walked all the way home because this is how much this
I
session
think that was
impacted
your
me.
first session, and then this was right before we got married, wasn't it?
Oh, that
But you've
was.
had several hard sessions like this before.
Yeah.
It
I
was just this
mean,
was like this is a good example of what it was like.
okay, so keep that in mind. You know, some months of Sundays go on, and I'm getting more of these clients that are just like literally testing me in every which way possible. I mean, some were testing me in terms of like my confidence as a therapist. Like, yo, who are you? Like, telling me how to live my life. And then I had to face the struggle of like even continuing to feel lonely within my cohort because it's just like we didn't necessarily connect in that way. On top of that, I have these like feelings and rumors and stuff spreading about like teachers not approving me, and it's just like all of this stuff is just kind of turned
It
into
was
this like
ridiculous.
clusterfuck of like why the hell did I even do this in the first place?
Because Brandon, if you know him in person, and if you don't, now you're going to. But he is a hard worker. He doesn't play around. He's not lazy. He stays up hours to finish things. He also makes time with his fur family and his wife. And he's really good at what he does. And they were really bullshitting him, like super hard. It was not fun for you. Not this time was not that fun.
No.
No,
Just no.
because it gets better, meaning worse. I was gonna say that we should talk about how our marriage was because notes.
Yeah. So, remember that time we had told y'all about my lovely mom with all the well intention that told us that the first year of marriage is like the hardest?
She was not wrong.
She was definitely not
And
wrong.
I don't know if it was because she said that. I think it was just how life might be. Maybe.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. On one hand, I felt like just like every bit of evil was just coming against us. Like, why is this happening? Why is
Can
this
I
happening?
tell them what was happening?
Abort. Yeah, I mean,
So, first of all, marriage was just hard in general. We were learning to live together. I am much cleaner than Brandon. And not to say that Brandon is dirty, because he's not. But we were learning to live together, learning to share a bathroom, learning to share a bed, sharing it. We had Riley, who's snoring in the background, maybe you can hear. We were also trying to find more couple friends, because it was like whenever we got married, it's like we kind of fell off the face of the earth and people stopped talking to us.
Stop.
And it was like we became exclusive without trying. It was like people just stopped talking to us. And I don't really know why, because it was really hard that first year and we didn't have as much support as I would have liked. And a lot of our support came from like my parents and my sister and stuff. Also, personally, I was dealing with some random physical health, and also, what else? Just mental health stuff. So, like, panic attacks. I started,
like random.
I started, getting these panic attacks and anxiety attacks at work. So, in this corporate, I framed it for you. It was great, right? No, it wasn't. And then all of a sudden, I'm having these bodily experiences where I'm not able to control the thoughts or the words that I'm saying, and I'm also not able to like control myself, and like I'm having these mental breakdowns at work. I had to go outside, like just and I was trying to tell my boss of what was going on, and that was embarrassing enough because I'm a woman, he's a man, and so like it was like trying to explain what was going on. And like luckily he was really understanding because he himself had his own health issues, and so he knew what life was like with that. But like it was hard. It was really hard. And then we figured out that it was my birth control, the Nexplanon IUD that goes in your arm. Don't get it. I've seen commercials for it recently, and I boo them every time. It ruined me. It was the key to the ignition of my whole current mental health journey.
Hold on, let me reiterate. Please, by all means, avoid this thing. Like, this thing is a life destroyer. I have no problem saying that like publicly because
I only got it because I like the idea of not having a menstrual cycle, and so I went for it. I wouldn't have to think about it anymore because I remember I was on the pill before, and I was missing some times of taking my pill, and it would throw me off, and I had to get back on. Oh, it's just a whole mess. And just to avoid condoms. And condoms, I was told this in the doctor's office by a that nurse, I don't know if you were there. She said, she was like, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but condoms are just as effective as this IUD thing. So like, you know, we just went with that.
Yeah, I wish we would have done our research.
It,
I really wish we would have like really done our
I was having
research.
like physical effects. I was like not eating. I was going diarrhea. I was avoidant. I was just unmotivated. Nothing. So don't recommend it. Also, we really did get sick a lot. We were sick during the summers. I did wedding photography, which was a hassle because I'm doing wedding photography. Also had a lot of back problems, strep throat, fatigue, allergies, debilitating allergies.
I literally threw my back out by laying on an ottoman.
Right.
If that says
So
anything.
physically, we were not doing well. We were also learning how to grieve. That was the first time I had been close to someone who lost someone that was close to them. So Brandon lost his friend Daniel all of a sudden. And
Like
so,
very all of a sudden. I
uh,
just remember getting a Facebook like DM from his brother, and all it said was he's gone. And I was like, what do you mean? And he just told me everything, and I was just hoping, praying that he was kidding, and he definitely was not. And I remember that same night just like going over to his house and just like crying with his entire family that was there. It it was just like, I think that was the first time I had ever like lost a friend. I'd been used to loss before, you know, having lost my grandmother and other family members, but like this one hit in such a different way.
right. And I, on the other side of things, was watching him deal with this, and up to that point, had never personally dealt with grief. Or, I mean, I had been through grief before as younger, but it was not as close to me. So that was hard.
Yeah,
It
it
was
just
really
makes it
hard.
tough because, I mean, hindsight, it was hard to not be able to like lean on you fully for that support. Although, like, I really wanted to, I knew that that was something that was going to be really hard, and it ended up being something that placed a strain on our relationship because, I mean, here I am dealing with this death. I mean, here we are as a married couple, still learning how to be as one and to like learn how to support each other and stuff. And like right away, stuff like this is happening, and it's like,
It was hard.
yeah,
It was ridiculous. And on top of that, like I said, we didn't have a super tight knit community. We had, from the time of our engagement, we had felt abandoned by people in the church and by our friends, and we were just lonely. And so we really had each other, but we were also fighting. Like Brandon and I had some of our most serious fights in this time, and during when we lived in Texas and Abilene, and it was ugly. It was ugly to the point where I said things that no woman should say to her man, and Brandon didn't explain himself or communicate what was going on, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I feel like I didn't ever really learn how to deal with hard things super well growing up, and so that was playing its role in all of this. Um, and even though we had like, this is the section which we should call farts and fried rice, because by the way, this is one of the chapters in the book we want to write at some point, was just farts and fried rice. Like, I remember the story behind farts and fried rice was we were eating at our favorite sushi place, and we took some food home because we couldn't eat it all, and we went somewhere else, and then we got in the car, and I was like, ew, it smells like farts and fried rice in here, because like we weren't eating vegan then, and so our farts were really stinky. And you know you're not eating vegan when your farts are stinky. You know vegans are known for being tofu farters, but they don't stink like meat farters do. So it was really stinky in our car, and I was like, this smells like our life right now. Farts and fried rice. So that was the time. It was farts and fried rice time. So But you were about to graduate soon, and we knew that we didn't want to stay there, but we knew that you're going to work on your doctorate. So,
Well, actually, rewind because at first I really didn't know what to do. I mean, I knew I was going to be ending up like doing therapy somewhere, whether that was staying in Abilene for a little bit or if that was like getting out to a bigger city. But I think that was at a time where who I would consider a mentor, Dr. Dale Bertram, he had talked with me about, well, you have all of these amazing talents and stuff, and you have these, you have all of this potential. Why don't you go on and pursue your doctorate? And at the time, like I said, that wasn't something that really crossed my mind. It wasn't necessarily a desire, but after talking with him about it and like in a way being persuaded, I decided, well, it makes sense. Like I felt like I would have a ton more options that way. And he actually helped me to like get applications done and like figure out which schools to apply to and which not. Um, and so yeah, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do at first, but after having that conversation, it made the most sense. I mean, why not fine tune all this awesomeness that he's talking about? And so I applied to different programs. I applied
you applied
so
to
many
Iowa.
programs. I applied to Iowa.
You even drove all the way up there for an
Drove up
interview.
there for an interview. And y'all, this interview, um,
We could.
let's
It was this
just
bad.
say the highlight of this interview was the actual interview itself, where a professor. The question to me was, "Well, you're black. I'm white. How do you expect us to work well together?"
Dun dun
Um,
dun.
I don't know how to answer that question, sir.
What's
Um,
that noise on? What is it? The Price is Right
Vroom,
or
vroom, vroom, vroom.
that?
Yeah, sir, I don't know how to answer that question, but hindsight looking back, that's not a question that you ask right off the bat without establishing any kind of rapport.
Right.
Like
It's just disrespectful.
that I'm sorry.
Well, so you got into ULM though.
Yeah, that interview process was way on the opposite end of the spectrum. Kiwi,
You're agging him on.
go ahead,
Just put
please.
it over there. Just don't throw it.
And anyway, but yeah, that interview was totally different. All the staff and professors there were super friendly. I remember getting a personal tour and like having opportunities to talk with each of the professors. And also, Dr. Bertram knew some of these professors. They had been friends and had grown up and gone to school together and done clinical stuff together. And so I left that interview and left that feeling really good. Turns out when I found out that I got in, I was like, "Oh, Dr. Bertram, I got in. I'm going to be, going to be a doctorate, student." Blah blah blah. He kind of smirked, and I was like, "What's that smirk?" And he was like, "Oh, let me show you something." And he shows me this email of him talking with these professors, and they had already said, "Yo, this kid is great. You might as well consider him, as one of the bunch that we're going to take in." This dude knew all along and did not say anything. I was kind of pissed, but at the same time, I was kind of glad that he didn't tell me. But all in all, I was able to get into a PhD program.
Which was amazing. And I kind of encouraged it because you were like, I don't know. And I'm like, you're really smart. Let's do it. But if you do it, we're going to do it.
Well, I
So,
mean, think about it. We've been going through like so much stuff at that point, and I knew like as awesome going into a PhD program was, like that was gonna add a different kind of stress on our relationship. And so like when we were talking about it, I really wanted to make sure that like we were both on board about this because I mean not only is this impacting me and my future and my career, like this is impacting you too. So
yeah, well, I didn't really think of it that way when we were first talking about it because I didn't. I was like, let's go for it. I didn't even think about how hard it would be. Right. Right, Kiwi. Well, that made us move to Louisiana, which we were very excited about in the beginning. And I was a little extra pumped. I honestly didn't know what to expect. I went in to Louisiana with Kiwi, with not Kiwi. we got Kiwi in Louisiana, so he's a big part of that. But I don't even remember what I was saying. Damn it. Kiwi's so
You were gung ho
distracting.
about Louisiana.
I was gung ho about Louisiana, and I was also somewhat gung ho because of our friend Brianna Shackelford, now Shackelford. She was then Shackelford too, because she is just getting married,
Mm-hmm.
and she became my sanity sesh. I'll let you know why here in a second, but what were we doing there in Louisiana? When we got there, you were going to school. And getting to Louisiana was an easy process. It was very clear that we needed to be there for a time. And it was easy to get there. We found an apartment right away. And you found a job pretty soon after that. So it was great because I got to be at home. I didn't have to work, which was great for me. Because, I mean, I got to pursue what I love to do, which was my photography and design stuff.
Right.
Which was fun at first.
Yeah, and I mean, with your connect,
And yours too, because you worked with her too. She was out there at the same. She worked with us at Camp of the Hills, and we were all out there at the same time.
yeah, but I was gonna say, like, she also was the reason why we were able to find community pretty quickly because she was already a part of a life group, and the church that we eventually like started going to.
Right.
So like already we were being taken care of. Already things were like falling into place.
Yeah, and we were accepted pretty well at the beginning too, and there was like we were invited to the re-engaged marriage ministry, which was really great. It was hard, and whenever we went, I was like, man, this is gonna be like marriage counseling because we didn't. I don't even know if we talked about this in our last one. But we did marriage counseling and we quit early because it was kind of dumb. We had already talked about all those things together because, like I said, we had asked a bunch of questions to each other. This is our dog, by the way. He has something to say.
Can we help you?
What a character. Okay. Real life people. So, okay, Kiwi. So you were doing school and I was doing my business for a time, and then I was introduced to Juice Plus as a business and a product and fell in love with it immediately. The business side of it was very difficult for me. But I made so many great connections. People were so welcome. It was probably the best community I had found at that time. And it sucks because they were all long distance. Like everyone lived in Colorado or in Texas, and I just felt really like, okay, like this is not working for me. Like, and it did work for me for a time, and I'm still avidly a taker of Juice Plus, and I do own a franchise, which feel free to ask me about later. I would love to tell you. It was the main thing that got me into my veganism now, and I'm very thankful for it. And honestly, can't go a day without it. So I was doing that, working on my photography stuff, and then marriage kind of shit hit the fan. Let's just say that. We had been fighting a lot in Texas, but I feel like we were fighting a lot more in Louisiana, especially when we started going to re-engaged for our marriage. It was not like marriage counseling.
No, re-engaged was a totally different animal. I felt like it brought to surface a lot of things that we hadn't questioned or we questioned but not deep enough. So while it was tough, I'm definitely thankful for it because I feel like going through that process together helped us to really strengthen our marriage, and I think is a really big part of like why we are able to do the things that we're doing today. But yeah, that in and of itself was like a totally different animal. also we're going through this with other couples, and so like that's another community that's developing.
We
um
had a great first group too.
yeah, it was like super powerful. Like everybody was like well invested. It was just like everything you can ask for in this kind of group. um but yeah, shit definitely hit the fan.
And when I don't even know why. A lot of times we would fight and we would get to a point where we would be like asking the question, why are we even fighting right now? And we didn't even know. And we talked about this beforehand before we recorded this that we feel like a lot of it was our trauma history playing out, and any kind of pain was becoming a trigger point, and so fights were pretty nasty. There were times when Brandon wouldn't even remember hours at a time, and that really scared me. And he said that had happened before. Can you kind of explain what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so if you remember back to the first episode where I disclosed to you guys that I was raped as a kid, like gang raped. And so for me, that was quite a traumatic experience that at the time I didn't realize was a traumatic experience. I just knew that it was going to impact everything about me and around me and things that I did moving forward. So moving into this marriage relationship um, where Amy Beth didn't know that those things happen, I don't necessarily think we fully understood the like full impacts of it all. And so in these fights, I felt like almost in the same way that I did while being raped, there was just like this overwhelming, like unsafe feeling that came about me. And I remember times before when I would have that feeling, I would like essentially black out. Um,
Disassociate.
yeah, it was kind of like this dissociative state to where like my body was physically defending itself from like experiencing this pain. And so having experienced that with my wife, where I felt this pain that was similar to this traumatic event, like suddenly we'd be fighting, and then it was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, did I do something? Did I say something? Did I hurt you? Because it would literally be like, for me, one moment I'm like saying some bullshit response, like not even making sense in the argument, to suddenly I'm like on the floor in tears, or like I'm somewhere else, and it's just like, what the heck just happened? It was almost
Right.
like life just jumped forward on me.
And that was really scary for me because I really didn't know what was going on. And even within myself, I didn't know what was going on because I was like, I was reacting to you. I was having my own like freak out moments. I would beg you not to leave. I would like, but I was forceful. I was aggressive in making you stay and working things out, and you just weren't ready for it. People were telling me, like, just give him time, just give him time. I'm like, but you don't understand. This gets like really, really bad. Like, it gets to a point where he just shuts down and doesn't talk to me. And so we did confide in quite a few people then, and they were listening and luckily understanding and helpful, and but still, I mean, I don't know. I don't remember what I was gonna say here. So many
Well, I
cause
mean, I felt like the people we did talk to, whether that was people in our life group or people in this re-engaged group, yeah, they were listening, but oftentimes I wondered if they were like listening. Because I mean, it's one thing to like actually physically listen to someone talk about something. And I mean, you could say all the right things, but then there's another thing to like actually listen. And I felt like
and
the
walk through this with somebody else.
right. I mean, not expecting that like you're this person that's gonna walk with you is gonna fix everything. I mean, that's kind of like a really high expectation, but to at least give it an effort. And not that was something I felt like was lacking. Just reflecting back on even just talking about that stuff. And it was already something that I wasn't really comfortable talking about anyway, just because of my own personal fear of how it would like impact my relationships, saying that it had like impacted relationships already.
Yeah, yeah. I kiwi. Oh my gosh, I wish
Yeah,
you
I
guys could
mean,
be
long
here.
story short, I think at the time, especially while we lived in Louisiana, I don't think we realized like our triggers.
No, we didn't.
And I don't think we realized that we were triggering each other. And I don't think we fully understood each other's pain, which caused pain. It was just like this whole like cycle of just like
And we
pain.
were going through stuff over and over and over. Let me just tell you what happened in 2016. So in January, my granddad was put in the hospital and almost died because of his own health. Also, early March, this was when Brandon lost his job at the wraparound. Or actually, he left his job, and he can talk about that here in a second. Then in later March, not much later than that, Brandon's brother was shot and killed suddenly, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was not, that was an experience in itself. And then I got a job, and then in April, and then in June, my pops passed away, and then our finances were just kaput, and then we were fighting a lot. So, and then we were changing our health. I think that's when I decided to go vegan, and so things were changing and shifting really rapidly for us, and also at the same time, just so much going on, so much pressure, so much like just things from all sides, and people not being understanding to people
Us not,
die, pe- people dying
us
to
not understanding each
right,
other,
just
life circumstances, financial crisis. Like we literally got hit from all angles, and even on top of that, like triggers were like dramatically increasing. I mean, to the point where our marriage was like truly tested in a way. So it was just like all of these things were just happening one after another, back to back, back to back, and it was just like there was no relenting. And so like we went through some shit.
yeah. And we were also having a difficult time living in Louisiana because of the culture. And I remember at one point, it was after our re-engage sessions were up and done. We had celebrated, it was our last one. And someone came up to us and said these words, quote, I never knew that two people from two different cultures could be married and it work out so well. And clearly implying, because we were the only interracial couple of black and
Mm.
white descent
I was the
at this church.
um,
Only African
other
American
category, meaning I was the black person in this group.
in this group and in re-engaged because there were no other
There are
black,
no other black people.
none.
None.
So you were the token. And
Yep.
it was made very clear that they didn't understand. So it was from that moment that we knew that that was going to be an issue. And that happened pretty early on in being involved in this group. I think it was about 6 months in of our experience in Louisiana, and we were like, okay, so you definitely don't get it and don't understand that what you just said was not super appropriate or mindful, or thought out. So, yeah. Um, Please talk about your wraparound experience, Brandon, and how it ended, because I feel like this is played out very well for you because this was a very hard decision when it happened, but looking back, it was probably the best thing you ever did for yourself.
Yeah, so I'm fresh into my therapy career where I'm learning the ins and outs of therapy and networking and all this great stuff. And with this job, my primary role was to essentially be a case manager. So I would work with these various families and like provide them the therapy supports and like life supports and all that stuff they needed. And of course, like any clinician or caseworker, I would document everything. Well, I discovered that some of the methods that they were using violated some of the ethics that I was under, and so
The
I,
code of ethics
the
you
code,
were.
of, the oh, yeah, the code of ethics of like marriage and family therapy. And so I talked with my supervisor at the time, Dr. Wilson, who was definitely a gem in all of this roughness, which I'll describe more about her later. She pretty much like got enraged and she began to question and she wasn't getting the answers that she was getting. So she had to lay into him. But long story short, what ended up happening after discovering this kind of like breach of ethics, um, I tried to go to my supervisor on site about it to kind of like get things fixed. And it ended up being turned on me. Like they were going to try to pin all of these like um, illegal actions and illegal methods on me, saying that, oh, I didn't document properly, that I fabricated stuff. And essentially, I was pretty much on thin ice
For no reason.
for no reason. And so I remember leaving that day like in straight up panic, like, oh my gosh, like this is gonna totally ruin me. And I remember calling my dad, like freak out
My
panic
dad.
mode. Yes, her dad. It's
But your
still my
dad.
dad. We can share dads.
I know, I'm just letting you know, letting
Anyway,
people know that it's
so
my dad.
my
You
dad.
get 4 dads!
Whatever. Anyway, um, yeah, I call him in straight up freak out panic mode. Like they're doing this thing, and I don't know what to do. Like we're not gonna have any money. Like my wife is gonna kill me. Like what do I do? And he calmed me down in his typical dad fashion, which I so greatly appreciated. And he put everything into perspective for me, and really encouraged me to make a difficult decision to walk away and pray for another opportunity to come up. And so I ended up resigning from that job. And
That day.
that day, like I put in my like 2 weeks notice, like I can't do this anymore. Um, and there was definitely no remorse in releasing me. I felt like I did him a favor, and that's the end of
And then
that.
they ended up getting in big fat trouble
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part. They did end up getting
later.
in big, big fat trouble. I don't necessarily know the results of all of that, but let's just say,
It was very quickly after you left.
yeah,
You left right in time.
let's just say it was bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, nothing against the wraparound model because having done my research, it is such a good model. But I think that particular place was definitely missing opportunities, and um, yeah, I mean, lesson learned. You really have to like do your research.
Yeah.
Do your research.
But luckily, I found a job right away.
Yeah,
And then that's when I started working in agency. And that was the year of agency. Meaning, I was a graphic designer for a local ad agency, and I did everything from billboards to magazine ads to newspaper ads to website design stuff, all the kind of ads that you can think about. So I was in advertising for a year, and luckily the job was literally right across the street, so I just could walk to work. Most of the time, Brandon would drive me because we like to spend time together, and we would take the dogs with us and everything, and they would deliver me to work, and then they would drive back home.
and then I would get ready for school and leave.
And it was literally right across the street. Like there was no reason for him to drive me, so he drove me anyway. And that was my first big girl job outside of the corporate atmosphere. It was not a whole lot different other than it was smaller and there was more, seemed like there was more drama. But it was just more in confined spaces and everyone got along for the most part. It was not my favorite thing because I, like Brandon, would ask for help and not receive it. And then when I would ask for help, it would be this big deal of, well, you should know how to do that. And I was like, well, you told me to ask for help. And here I am asking for help and you're giving me shit about it. So I had a very difficult time working at this place. I did love a few people that I worked with, but overall, that was the last straw for me when it came to working for other people and working in ads and working in agency or corporate. It was then I discovered that I needed to work for myself, and I ended up leaving that job a month earlier than I wanted to, or than we anticipated, but I took them for all they were worth. So it was just difficult in the way of I had all this stuff happening to me. So I started this job in April of 2016, and that was when right when shit was hitting the fan, and even right as I was getting scheduled to interview for this job, that was when Michi passed away, and I had to go to St. Louis from Phoenix, from a conference, all the way out to St. Louis, and to help with all of the arrangements for Michi's funeral and all that kind of stuff. So I started off on this weird foot of hopefully my stuff was going to be over, and there was a joke even made within the interview, like, hopefully all the shit that's happening to you stops, and it didn't. And my boss was not very nice about my life situation and gave me crap about trying to go home for my grandpa's funeral that summer. And I couldn't help it. Like, I live in I'm from Texas. I'm not from here. I think we had lived about 6.5 hours away. And that's a long drive.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were 8 hours away from St. Louis. And so we had to go take care of stuff there even after. And I was given a hard time about my family situation. And it was very money oriented. So that's kind of 2017. I was working in this job. Brandon's still going to school. We're still making strides, and we ended up leaving that one church where we did re-engage, and we went and found another one. I don't even remember how I think I found it through a photographer friend. Mm-hmm. She told me about it because she was going to the college ministry or something, or the young adult ministry, and that's when we stepped in the doors of Christ Church and immediately felt like weights were lifted for some reason, and
like literally felt it.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could like create a VR experience or something of just like
what it was like to walk into
to
that
just
place.
walk in and just like feel this overwhelming peace that you just cannot explain. I mean, we have been through deaths and work stuff and marriage stuff and financial stuff, and then suddenly we walk into this church and
because we just decided to leave the other one. We were like, no, we can't do this anymore.
Like,
because more things were said. It was just not the environment that me and Brandon were thriving in, and we would leave upset, and it was like, this isn't worth it.
Right.
So we went and found something else.
And to walk into this church and to literally feel that just like being lifted.
And Brandon found community pretty quickly there. I did not, because I was working a lot, and Brandon had more time than me. So he was pretty involved.
Yeah, like I found a group of men that met every Tuesday morning.
Early.
At 6 o'clock in the morning.
Worth it.
And it was just like discipleship and brotherhood, and like they were teaching me
community.
Yeah, they were teaching me different ways to like be a man in a marriage. And like several of those men like took me under their wing and just like really invested in me. And I think in the later parts of us being in Louisiana, they were pretty pivotal in just like what was to come. I mean, even to the point where for the first time I'd actually willingly wanted to go to a men's retreat where I was going to be taken deeper in my faith and like be challenged in a different way. And even that was like such a great experience. And so like despite all the stuff that had happened to us at that point, and even stuff that we were still going through, like these were people that truly had my back and had my wife's like heart and mind, and like wanted to help me be better for her. And so if you're listening and you know who you are, I am super thankful for you.
Yes, I am too. because you needed that at the time. If you're a dude and you're listening to this and you don't have a dude community or a community that you feel comfortable with, go and find one.
Like seriously, like lay down your fucking
don't try to do
grind
everything by
and
yourself.
just go find a dude group. Like, go find a fucking dude group where you can be a dude and do dude things.
Or just a group that you feel comfortable with, because I don't want to limit it to just dude groups, but like finding a community where you feel challenged, but you also feel loved and people have your back no matter how you act or what you do, or if you mess up in whatever area of your life that you're trying to stay accountable for.
Yeah, and don't let work be an excuse either. Yeah, I'm a man. You probably think, oh yeah, too work and I'm too busy. You are not too busy to have a fucking community, so go get a fucking community.
Okay. Brandon's passionate.
I am.
Well,
Relationships.
Yes, Christchurch was the gym, and it's what has gotten us. It's kind of what got us through that last few months of Louisiana, but we decided to do something crazy. We decided to move to Colorado. Brandon and I had never been to Colorado before. Maybe
Actually,
you've been through Colorado.
Actually, I've spent Thanksgivings in Buena Vista with my best friend Dale, and also went on a truck trip.
You didn't have to say that.
Well, I didn't want to lie.
Oh, you're so sweet. You don't want to lie. Okay, well, we had never been to Denver.
We have never been to Denver.
We were tired of Louisiana and knew that we didn't belong there and that our time was up and Brandon was done with his coursework. So we knew a lot of people here because of my Juice Plus community and I had formed some pretty tight-knit relationships with the Bloods.
Blah, 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 blah.
It's Alina and Daryl. But their last name is Blood.
Blah, 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 blah.
They're going to love this part.
One blood.
And they we were going to stay with Sarah and Eric, and that didn't work out because Sarah and Eric were trying to move. But then Alina and Daryl stepped in and said that we could stay with them. So for 3 weeks, we would stay with them. But that was the plan. So Brandon didn't have a job. I didn't have a job.
Nope.
We didn't know where we were going to live. We had 2 dogs and at the time, SUV full of whatever we could fit into it, which included my tower garden and a whole bunch of dresses that I ended up donating to Buffalo Exchange for no reason. Brandon had to throw out some of his stuff because of those stupid dresses. I feel bad about it, but we got some new slides now, so I don't feel so bad. There was a lot of stuff that got thrown away, and I feel so wasteful about it. But we were just like, let's go, let's get out of here. We left in a hurry. We left in that hot rain. You remember that day?
That day was poetic.
That day was so poetic. We left in the hot rain to go to Houston, and we did a tour up through Texas and went up to Colorado, and it was great. But we chose to go to Colorado because we really prayed for a clear path. We had been debating about going to Dallas just because there was some opportunities for me out there, and also I had some family out there. We are also talking about St. Louis because Brandon has family out there now, and we really love St. Louis. We love going. We love being there.
And I also had to put, some connections as far as work too. So,
but for some reason, we just didn't feel good about those 2 places. While we were excited to leave, we were not excited to go back closer to our families.
Mm-hmm.
And felt like we still needed to be on our own. And so we kind of just did our own thing. And it just worked out really well. Colorado was placed in front. We were just asking God, the universe, whatever, to give us signs and where to go. And for some reason, Denver kept coming up. Whether that was in Netflix specials we were watching or we would be praying for something and somebody be wearing like a Denver t-shirt or, like your pin that Daniel made.
Yo, okay. So we've been we've been praying for a clear path, not even knowing that like one was already starting to be developed. So when my friend Daniel had passed, one of the gifts that I received was this hand painted pen,
Bowling pin.
a bowling pin, and it was the Denver Broncos. Didn't think anything of it. It was just like, you know what? I have this thing that like my best friend, had created, and so I get to remember him this way. So we had this pen in our house in Louisiana, and I remember it was right before that hot rainy day where we were getting ready to leave, and you like
we were packing the rest of our stuff.
Right, and you look up on the bookshelf, and you're like, babe, the answer has been right here the whole fucking time. And sure enough, it was there the whole entire time.
Yeah.
But seriously, every time we prayed about it or thought about it or talked about it,
Denver would come up.
It came up somehow. And so
it was very clear and evident that we needed to be there, and the path was given to us, and we were given a nice landing pad for a few weeks, and so we took it. We took the opportunity. We had never been up here. We didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, even while we were up here for those 3 weeks, like I was hustling to find work.
Yeah,
you were hustling to like help find an apartment space, and like both of those came like that.
It was within 3 weeks we knew where we were going to live and where Brandon was going to potentially work, and my sister was moving in with us too. And so that made a huge difference. And so this is where we end this podcast because it's perfect timing and we're about to go
chill.
Go chill.
Because we got a whole Sunday.
Brandon is off work tomorrow and we are going to enjoy it. And then the next day is New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day. So you'll be hearing this from the past year. Yes. From last year. So
of course, if you have any questions or you're curious about any certain parts, maybe there's some gaps that you're wondering about, feel free to reach out to us.
Because there might be some gaps, but I feel
there are
like
definitely some gaps.
We covered what the main stuff of what was happening in that first few years, 4 years, 3.5 years of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It was rough. It was rough. And we took a lot of chances.
Yeah, and again, these are like snapshots, giving you like the foundation of like what makes us in a sense.
Right.
So definitely feel free, if you have more questions, you can email us at peasinprogress at gmail.com. You can also DM both of us on the Instagram.
You can
DM us at peasinprogress. You can reach wifey at ThatVeganWife on the Insta.
I can say that part.
Well, I want to say it because I like promoting you because you're freaking awesome. And then, of course, you can reach me at thats.bold.outcast on the Insta. But yeah, feel free to reach out and ask us questions or, tell us what you think about the podcast because that feedback is quite helpful for us.
Or tell us what we should talk about because this is the last of the foundational stuff. I feel like we can talk about a lot of things from the last 3 episodes that we've created, but we'd love to hear from you. So if you have, like Brandon said, if you have any questions, any podcast subject ideas, we are constantly reading and searching things about ourselves, so we definitely have things planned, but we want to hear from you. So find us at Peace in Progress on Instagram, or you can look up our stuff on thatveganwife.com/podcast, or just go and search for it. Peace in Progress. It's there.
Yes.
You can find it.
And of course, if you want to make sure to stay followed with us and get all the lovely updates and...
We already said this. Peace in Progress. Find it on Instagram.
And subscribe.
We're on Apple Podcasts now.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say because we had not said that word yet. And
subscribe, you guys. Subscribe.
Anywho. But yeah, this next one's going to be a banger. You do not want to miss it. So make sure to follow and be ready because...
Let's end it. Man, you take forever to say shit.
They sitting here listening. What the hell they gonna go?
Okay,
They
you
gonna cut
guys.
us off?
All right. Well, that's the end of this podcast. Bye.
Bye. Wait, don't do it yet.